Hello and welcome to another edition of Barça Fan Voice. Today I'm going to be looking back at one of my favourite games of all time, an epic clash between Barça and Manchester United in 1994 in the Champions League group stage. First I'll need to set the scene a little bit. This was Johan Cruyff's Barça, of course, a fantastic team that became known as the Dream Team for the football that it played. Cruyff had arrived in Barcelona as coach in 1988, and after a transition in the first couple of seasons, the system began to take effect and Barça began to win league after league in 1991, 1992, 1993, 1994. And they also won the European Cup, of course, in 1992 with Ronald Koeman's free kick, winning it against Sampdoria at Wembley. We were now in Johan Cruyff's seventh season at the club, and things hadn't started quite as well this season. There were various reasons for this, of course. Barça was suffering a hangover from losing to AC Milan 4-0 in the European Cup final in 1994, which, kind of with an end to the dream team in many ways. We saw Zubizarreta left and Michael Laudrup left, two very key players. We also had the effect of a hangover from the World Cup of 1994, with star players Romario and Stoichkov both not finding their form. So Barça had started the season badly, the 1994-1995 season. They'd lost at Sporting Gijón and at Zaragoza in the league, and they'd also lost to Gothenburg in the Champions League. Now, during the early 1990s, Barça saw two teams as their main rivals in European football. One was AC Milan, who of course had got the better of Barça in Athens with that 4-0 win in the Champions League final. And the other was Manchester United, who were led by Alex Ferguson, of course, then. And Manchester United had beaten Barça in the Cup Winners' Cup final of 1991, 2-1 in Rotterdam, with 2 goals from Mark Hughes. So Barça wanted some revenge against United, but United were probably a better team in 1994 than they had been in 1991. They had won the Premier League in 1993 and 1994, and also the FA Cup in 1994 for a domestic double. They had in their squad, for example, Eric Cantona, Peter Schmeichel, the goalkeeper, Roy Keane, Dennis Irwin, Mark Hughes, Paul Ince, and they also had a stock of youngsters coming through, with Ryan Giggs, Paul Scholes, David Beckham, Gary Neville and Nicky Butt. Now, we should of course remember that this was the last season before the Bosman ruling allowed players to play in any country across Europe, and teams were only allowed 3 foreigners at the time. Now, for Manchester United, this was a problem when they played in Europe, because their Irish players were considered as foreigners. So they had 5 foreign players with only 3 places available. They had Peter Schmeichel, Cantona, of course, so he was suspended, Andrei Kanchelskis, Roy Keane and Dennis Irwin. So this was a problem for Alex Ferguson. Barça, of course, had been affected by the 3 foreigner rule, having had 4 very strong foreign players with Ronald Koeman, Christos Stoichkov, Michael Laudrup and Romario. And of course, Laudrup left the club in the summer of 1994 to sign for Real Madrid because he was getting less minutes than he wanted, and Cruyff was preferring the other 3 over him, really. Now, in the Champions League that season, Barça and Manchester United were in Group A with Galatasaray and Gothenburg. Now, you might think it would be easy for both teams to go through, but that wasn't the case. Only one went through in the end. Barça, of course, had lost to Gothenburg, and going into the game, Barça only had 3 points. This was a time when it was 2 points for a win still. Barça had 3 points from 3 games, and Gothenburg and Manchester United both had 4 points after 3 games. So when United came to Camp Nou for the 4th game in the group stage, there was great expectation. There were 114,273 people who paid to see this game, which is still a record for the Champions League group stage for an attendance. And on a personal note, this game was very important for me. I'd come to Barcelona in 1989, and this was the first time that Barca played an English side. I had to get a ticket, which I managed to get a ticket. In the end, a friend then got me another ticket, and I had to go out on the day of the game and try and find somebody to sell my second ticket to. Anyway, it was a very important game for me, playing an English side. I was convinced Barca were the best team on the planet, and I wanted to see them prove it against Manchester United. So, how did the teams line up that day? Alex Ferguson made a very controversial decision by leaving Peter Schmeichel out in order to play Irwin, Keane and Kanchelskis as his three foreign players. So there was a young Gary Walsh in goal for United, a back four of Parker, Bruce, Pallister and Irwin. In midfield they played basically a midfield of five with Kanchelskis, Paul Ince, Roy Keane, Nicky Butt and Ryan Giggs, with Mark Hughes on his own up front. Now let's look at the Barca lineup that day. In goal we had Carlos Busquets, the father of our great Sergio Busquets. Now, he was a controversial goalkeeper. He could be brilliant at times, but he was a bit erratic, a bit inconsistent and a bit unorthodox, with some wild runs out of his area. He'd been chosen by Cruyff to replace Zubizarreta, so he was a great goalkeeper for us. So there was a big spotlight on Busquets, and he received a lot of criticism. At right back we had Chapi Ferrer, short, strong and stocky, solid in defence, a great marker of a player. He often played in a defence of three, so we didn't see him attack so often, but in this game he was in a defence of four. We had two centre-backs, Ronald Koeman, he should need no introduction to. He was a defender with great distribution, very strong, hard, a little bit slow, which was perhaps his only weakness, but he was a great leader. And alongside Koeman in defence we had Pito Abolado, who was in his first season at the club. He went on to become a great favourite of the fans. He was an old school centre-back, very powerful in the air, and as you may know, he's now the coach at Espanyol. At left back we had Sergi Barjuan, who was very good at getting forward, perhaps similar to Jordi Alba in style, better going forward than in defence. If you want to see a great goal from Sergi, to see what he was capable of, look up his goal against PSV Eindhoven in 1996. Moving on to midfield, we had Pep Guardiola, who was a combination of style and grace mixed in with his passion. He was a great passer of the ball, had a great positional sense, like similar to Sergio Busquets. They played in the same position in front of the defence. Then we had Guillermo Amor, who was a very hard worker. Every team needs a worker, and Amor was a player who didn't get a lot of accolades, but he worked very hard, non-stop, never say die attitude. And Cruyff always seemed to find a place for him in the team. And then of course we had José María Baquero, who was a great captain for the team. Usually would play in a kind of a pivotal role just behind the attack, getting in the space between the defence and the midfield. And he played with his back to the goal a lot. Would play a wall pass off and then spin to make a dart into the area, where he often showed his skill with his head, scoring many goals. And then the forwards for Barca that day, of course we had Jordi Cruyff, who was Cruyff's son, another controversial figure. Along with Busquets in goal was replacing Zubizarreta, Jordi Cruyff was in the team very much in the place of Michael Laudrup, you might say. And again, the comparisons were not favourable. However, he did have some good performances for Barca, and this was one of them. And then, of course, the great Christos Stoichkov. You don't need any introduction from me, I'm sure. And the great Romario. These two players, Stoichkov and Romario, formed a great partnership for Barca. And this was a night when it was truly demonstrated. Now, the team that met previously 2 weeks before at Old Trafford And with a very close game, United took the lead through Mark Hughes. Then Romario and Baquero turned things round to put Barca in front before a late goal from Lee Sharp earned a point for United in a 2-2 draw. Now, at Camp Nou, things were very different. Barca were dominant really from start to finish. That should really be pointed out. It wasn't a game of dozens of chances. It wasn't a game of flowing attacking football. It was more a game of total control. Barca dominated, they kept the ball, and when Manchester United had the ball, the intensity of the whistling from the crowd was amazing. I mean, it was so hostile, the atmosphere. There were 6,000 Manchester United fans, at least. There were more probably amongst the Barca fans spotted around the ground. But Camp Nou was up for the occasion that night, and Barca dominated from start to finish. They took an early lead when Jordi Cruyff started the move. He knocked the ball into the area to Romario. United's goalkeeper Walsh came out. Romario fooled him, sold him a dummy, laid a really nice ball back towards Baquero. Baquero tried to shoot, but Guillermo Amor was also going for the ball. So Baquero's shot was a bit miscued. It flew across the goal. It would have gone out for a goal kick, but Paul Ince was there. He hacked the ball away. It went straight to Jordi Cruyff. He had the coolness of mind to see Stoichkov in space. He squared to Stoichkov, and Stoichkov lashed in a left foot shot which took a deflection in to make it 1-0 to Barca. Barca continued to dominate. The second goal came just before half time, and it was a real beauty. Christos Stoichkov played a 40-yard ball from the halfway line on the right side into the area towards Romario. Romario controlled it on his chest. The ball dropped between him and the defender. They were both off balance a little bit. The defender got a touch, but the ball went back to Romario. Controlled it, played a delightful dummy. You've got to go and watch this after listening to this. Delightful dummy, just to gain that yard of space before putting a shot back across the goal into the corner. So 2-0 at half time, total dominance. Second half continued very much in the same way. The third goal came around the 55th minute. Stoichkov got the ball, soaring away on the left side, soaring into the United half. The United defence are backing away from him. Romario makes a run across the defence. Stoichkov slips in the ball. Romario just stops it, leaves the ball in space for Stoichkov to run onto, and he unleashes a left foot shot into the far corner that beats the badly positioned Walsh in the United goal. And then, of course, the icing on the cake came at the very end. Chappie Ferrer, who normally didn't get forward very often, got forward on the right-hand side. Guillermo Amor put a pass through for him. Kanchelskis was trying to get back, but he was a bit of a mess. Ferrer tried to cross. The ball was cut out, came back to Ferrer, came inside and hit a left foot shot inside the near post. 4-0 to Barca. The atmosphere in the stadium was unbelievable. The celebrations, it was just a fantastic night all round. The victory meant that Barca would eventually qualify for the quarter-finals and Manchester United would be eliminated. However, it wasn't a happy ending for Barca. Things began to fall apart. It really was the end of the dream team, and this could very much be seen as the last great night of the dream team. Romario left 2 months later in the January transfer window, and at the end of the season, both Christos Stoichkov and Ronald Koeman left. We were the last, the great figures of the dream team, really. Barca's season went from not great to worse. We suffered embarrassing defeats at Real Madrid and Racing de Santander, and only finished fourth in the league. And despite getting through to the quarterfinals of the Champions League, we went out in that stage to Paris Saint-Germain 3-2 on aggregate. Cruyff, of course, tried to begin a transition, bringing in many young players with Ivan de la Peña, Oscar Garcia, Roger Garcia, Tony Bellathaman, Albert Celades were all tried. But he was only given one more season to try that before he was sacked in the summer of 1996. And things weren't much better for United this season. Having gone out of the Champions League, they ended up losing the English Premiership to Blackburn Rovers. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed the story of Barca beating Manchester United 4-0 in 1994. I'll do some more of these while there's no football. And if you enjoy it, give it a thumbs up, send us a comment if you remember the game, or if you'd like me to talk about any other game of over the last 30 years. Okay, and I'll be back on Wednesday with another edition. So until then, Visca el Barça. Bye for now.